Flight Risk is a new thriller starring Mark Wahlberg, directed by Mel Gibson. So today, let's see if it's worth your time. A U.S. Marshal boards a small plane to transfer a government witness to New York. As they cross the Alaskan wilderness, tensions start to rise as not everyone on the flight is who they appear to be. I just learned like last week that this was directed by Mel Gibson, and my excitement level for this film shot up. I was already pretty curious about Flight Risk. It was supposed to come out like October last year. It looked like Mark Wahlberg was going to deliver a straight up cheesy performance, and this is a fun movie. It's entertaining. There wasn't a moment I was bored with this film. And they managed to capture it within the cabin of this plane in a brisk 90-minute movie where it just takes place over the course of that time, trying to get to a different airport so they can go to Seattle and then eventually to New York. Everything that happens is in that time period. Mark Wahlberg revealing his true identity. Topher Grace and Michelle Dockery trying to fight off Mark Wahlberg. This movie's pacing moves very quick. They were able to utilize that quick runtime and that isolated feeling within the cabin to deliver a very tense movie. The trailer gave a lot away. There's no surprises when it comes to this movie. One thing that did work for this film is the balance of the action in the cabin and also this really awkward humor that honestly added to the entertainment value of this movie. I laughed quite often in this film. I don't know if it's intentional or not, or they wanted to bill it as like this comedy action film, but there was many times the jokes did land, but they were incredibly awkward. And most of it comes from Topher Grace as he's trying to lighten the tone of the film. He's incredibly stressed out about being this government witness, but he cracks these jokes left and right to kind of ease the tension. If it's him making jokes about him peeing his pants, there's humor constantly throughout this film. Even in the height of some of the action scenes, Mark Wahlberg talks about wanting to kiss Topher Grace, and hopefully that wasn't a dream of his. The humor is placed nicely within the film to not break up the tension, but to lighten the overall tone of the movie. Mark Wahlberg's great in here. This easily could be a film that if he continued to do something similar to this, that it would be those straight to VOD films, but he manages to have a lot of fun within this film. From the crazy over top performance to the jokes throughout the movie, you could tell that he just had an easy time delivering this performance and had fun with it. Topher Grace is also great in here. Michelle Dockery is the heart of the movie. She is the one that takes everything quite seriously, doesn't deliver many jokes. She is doing her job, and she is the one that is carrying most of this film. I do think they could have utilized Mark Wahlberg just a little more within the film. If it's some more humor or some more action, that brisk 90-minute feel, they could have done a little more with Mark Wahlberg rather than tying him up and having him to be sidelined for some of the film. But very early on in the beginning of the film, I could understand that it was going to be a movie that it wasn't going to take itself too seriously. You were going to have tension pretty early on with Mark Wahlberg revealing his true identity. That tension is there. There is some suspense, but very early on with how they were able to establish the jokes in the interaction between the characters, I got the sense that it wasn't going to be a film that was going to take itself seriously. They were going to have many jokes. They were going to lighten the tone of the film, and they were going to have fun along the way. We did have some action throughout, very contained action, but it did work to add some suspense to the movie. Now, this is a film where you have to suspend your disbelief and buy into the fact that they're going to eventually get to this runway. Many times they are just nose diving and then pulling themselves back up at the last minute. It doesn't make sense. It's not going to work, but it works with this movie. And many times you don't have that like feel that they're going to crash the plane and they're going to have to fight in the wilderness, or you know, something's drastic's going to happen on this plane, just because a lot of it does feel convenient when it comes to the plot devices and them trying to turn the plane around or save themselves. There's not much of that, like that threat. You don't feel that they're going to die in the sky and they're going to get hurt. You know, they're eventually going to make it to the runway. And in the beginning of the film and throughout this movie, there is a lot of noticeable CGI. In the beginning, I noticed multiple times, very early on in the beginning of the film, with Topher Grace, there's something knocking at his window. He opens up the curtains to see what it is. It's an animal, and it looks so terrible. And then there's a scene where as they get to the runway, I wasn't sure if it was an actual plane in a car, but they placed a plane in a car and kind of like an overhead shot, kind of zooming in on the plane and the car. It looks so polished and so fake, and the shadows around it seem so out of place. I thought that was like a CGI plane right there, and it looks so noticeable and so bad. I noticed those things often throughout this movie. So occasionally little CGI moments look absolutely terrible. I'm not sure if this film was trying to just be funny or ridiculous and poke fun at itself and just have a good time, but it is really hard to tell if the jokes were intentional or not, or if they were just trying to be, you know, cringy at times. It just has this odd sense of humor throughout the film. Couldn't tell if it was intentional or not, if it wanted to be something really funny, like they were trying to have jokes within this film, or it just came off as poor writing and they thought it was funny to themselves. It just did not work. The jokes feel incredibly awkward within this film, but it did add that entertainment value to the movie. This is a movie that's bad but good at the same time. Like, you enjoy watching it, but you understand the dialogue between characters is cheesy, poorly written, CGI is bad, the jokes make no sense, and just, you're like, what is going on? Like, why would people say that? No one interacts with each other that way. The tension was there, and I had a good time with this movie. I didn't anticipate the humor within this movie, but it ended up working overall, and just had a good time with this movie. I'm gonna go ahead and give Flight Risk a B-. Thank you guys for checking my review for Flight Risk, the new Mel Gibson film starring Mark Wahlberg. Have you guys seen it by chance? What do you think about it? Let me know in the comment section down below, and stay tuned for more up and coming content like this. My name is Justin Watches Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.